elemental educator as well. And I've also, for 28 years, been involved in shaman experiences throughout the world. Whether we're up for this moment or not, and he was up for it. And there was another thing that was amazing, was that in that tradition, people don't offer healing. Uh, it's important for the person to ask for healing. Like, I would have to say to him, which I did, can you try to help me out? There's something, it's like God helps those who help themselves. We have to ask first before the universal magic can work. So we're not going to just sit there and just kind of hang out and somehow Scott is going to come and save us. Although he may. Scott may do this. I know his power. I ask you to meditate on that story. It's the most powerful story I know about a shaman and spiritual master. All right, so now we're gonna make this fire, and I think being that we're a small group, each of us could take a piece of wood. Now, I'll tell you what. I'll do this, but then we'll do something else. And so I'm gonna just place some of these pieces of wood on here, mindful of what I'm doing. That we're gonna call on this fire to help us out here this evening. What I'd like to ask you to do is hold your little piece of twig here and infuse into it your life energy, your life force, so that when we place it, we're going to place it in with the fire, all of our life forces will be joined with the life force of the fire, and we'll all become one with this fire. Scott, let me just go around the circle, please. Remember, be gentle with your life. This is your life here, so just gently place it in there. wanted to someone who was here last evening in talking about fear had quoted some rabbi, and I don't know, Scott, maybe you would know there was some phrase about being fearless. Okay. So at any rate, what this gentleman was suggesting is that we be fearless. You know what? Before we go there, being that the two of you weren't here last evening, the first thing that we worked on was grief, the grief of being kicked off this campus, and to understand your own grieving or how you feel hurt. The first people kicked off this land were the Shamanic people. And when they were removed from this land, it was different. And this is not to say that your grief and your sadness are to be diminished, but it's unimaginable for people who, it's not like they were able to travel around like we travel in the world and move from one place to another. They were extensions of the land. They were tied to the land. And so to be separated from the land must have been so traumatic that really we can't really feel the depth of that grief. And then the Long Island University students were kicked off this land. And finally, you guys have been kicked off it. So when Long Island University students were being told that the school was going to close, they asked me to lead a ceremony. Hi, sweetheart. Asked me to lead a ceremony similar to what we're going to do here this evening. And we did this shamanic drumming ceremony. And afterward, there was a young man in that class who was very deeply attuned to the natural world. This young man came up to me and he said, "Pete, during the drumming, the indigenous, the native spirits came to me and they said, now you know what it feels like to be kicked off this land." And so this land has a memory of people being mistreated here. And so one of the things we want to do is bring that to an end so that no one else has to have that feeling. Well, like I said, this is in crisis. There's the opportunity to make great transformation, and we're going to help, in that process of taking what seems like a negative and transforming it into something positive and beautiful. So that's part of